Welcome to CIVICAST, a series of podcasts from the National Civic Impact Accelerator Programme, funded by Research England. I'm John Fell, Senior Policy Advisor at the NCIA. In this episode, I talk to Paul Manners, Co-Director of the National Coordinating Centre for Public Engagement, who are one of the NCIA's key delivery partners. We'll be talking about the NCIA programme and how you and your organisation can get involved. But first, I asked Paul to tell us about his background and career journey.
If I had to summarise what I care about education, about learning and the role of schools, colleges and universities, and those of us who are lucky enough to work in those roles, how we can bring the joy and the liberating power of learning to as many people as possible. So I started working with young people in schools. I was then lucky enough to get a job as a producer at the Open University, working for the BBC, where the whole mission of the OU and the BBC was to bring learning to everyone in the UK who wanted it. And some of you who are old enough will remember the joy of OU programmes early on Saturday mornings, looking at abstruse topics in mathematics or in education. We were really trying to open up the power of broadcasting to not just televise lectures from bearded academics, but to actually bring the joy of learning and discovery to life on the television. So I worked on a series called Rough Science, which was about the curiosity that drives scientists and the teamwork that makes science such an exciting and unpredictable kind of endeavour. And then I worked at the BBC in Specialist Factual, it was called. So I was lucky enough to work on the first series of Blue Planet, developing educational material and experiences linked to that. I worked on a campaign linked to reading called The Big Read, really thinking about the educational power of the BBC. And then this role at the National Coordinating Centre came up about 15 years ago. And I think it was an opportunity I just felt really compelled to take, which was to think, how can the whole university sector really embrace that mindset of opening up learning, knowledge, research, curiosity, and creating as much value, I think, in the world around us as we possibly can. So that's my journey.
So for those that don't know, please could you tell us a little bit about the NCCPE and its work?
Yeah, I was thinking, how do I describe the small but rather beautiful thing that is the NCCPE? I think we're a change agency. I think that's how we like to think of our work. We're a small team based in Bristol, established 15 years ago by a consortium of funders, including UK Research and Innovation, Wellcome, and the higher education funding councils from across the UK, all of whom really care about how open and engaged the university sector is and how engaged research is in particular. And so our role from the beginning has been to try and affect a bit of a change really in mindset, in culture within universities, particularly within research communities, to really emphasize that it matters that you reach out and that you connect and you engage with people outside the university. And that's been our mission for the last 15 years. It's been a really interesting journey. Our current work is very much connected to the civic. That's become a real focus, I think, in universities now, a real sense of social responsibility. And so the things that we've been talking about for many years, I think, have become more and more important and more present in how the university sector thinks about its work. So it's very exciting to be a partner in the National Civic Impact Accelerator.
Why now? You mentioned about how the sort of civic movement is sort of gaining momentum in recent years. Why do you think that might be?
This isn't new, actually. I think there's been always an interest in the university sector in being civic, but at various points in history, that interest has waxed and waned. And often that's down to the sort of external pressures that have been placed on the university sector. So when the NCCPE was founded back in the sort of mid-2000s, I think at that point in time, there was a real sense that the research and innovation system in particular had got really too detached from society. And there were issues around things like GM crops and other areas of sort of emerging technology where there was a real sense that the public were really distrustful and really concerned about what was happening. And that was a wake-up call. what happened as a result of that was a string of policy changes which were recognizing that we needed to open up and become more interested, responsive, and respectful of public opinion and also public involvement in the work that we do. And so that's where we started. I think what's happened more recently is a real sense that social injustice and inequality was a big factor affecting everybody in the UK, and that universities were, like every other public institution, kind of implicated in that, and that there was a real need for us to think about our social responsibility and our contribution to society. And COVID-19, I think, obviously created a huge pressure on the communities that we live within, really forced the university sector to think about what more it could and should be doing to support that. Issues related to Black Lives Matter, to the real focus on racism in society and the need for a more inclusive approach, forced a lot of universities to really reflect on how they took inclusion really seriously. The Levelling Up white paper and the focus from the government on regional inequality, again, asked really profound questions of us as a sector and how we could and should be more aware of the fact that in different parts of England and in the UK, there was really different sort of amounts of investment coming into communities that affected the role of the university within those communities. All kinds of challenges around how the world around us is changing and what does that mean for how we as universities respond. How can we demonstrate that we're trusted? How can we build trustworthiness? How can we demonstrate our accountability? How can we be more relevant? How can we really live our values in terms of our desire to be responsible and civic? All of these pressures, I think, have increased over the last 15 years. And it's taken us to this point where there's a real, potentially quite a paradigm shift in how we understand the role of the university.
There appears to be, given the cost of living crisis and the sort of economic squeeze on students, a drive perhaps more for the commuter student, the students living at home with parents and travelling to universities actually nearby or within their local community. So I wonder if that maybe could sort of have a greater bearing on students' feeling of place, because they're actually living in the locality of the university rather than travelling from other parts of the country.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, John. And I think we've not perhaps touched enough on the role of students in the civic agenda. And that's, your comment really makes me think about that we know how important it is for many students that they feel proud of their university's connections to their community, and who feel that they want more of a university education than just to be sat in a lecture hall being taught a subject. They want to develop as citizens, and they want to explore how they can contribute to society through the rest of their lives. So there's so many ways in which a civic mindset creates a richer and more meaningful educational and research culture. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the civic movement is it isn't about saying, oh, we carry on doing our research and teaching and we start doing some civic stuff. I think what's really exciting is how that civic mindset can really help us reimagine how to create purposeful, meaningful, and impactful research, knowledge exchange, and teaching. So that's one of the challenges that we're sure we'll be exploring over the next couple of years of the NCIA is how does this work really transform academic practice? How does it create new ways of building knowledge and sharing knowledge? And so there's a fascinating kind of academic line to this work that we'll be exploring through the action learning, as well as actually some of those bigger kind of management challenges for a university, which is how do we somehow find a way to coordinate and scale up what tends to be happening in really sort of quite small pockets and often disconnected pockets across our university. How can we put some kind of enabling structure in place so that this civicness is really well managed and well resourced without stifling, the creativity and the innovation that's going to be essential? How can we invest in perhaps more purposeful, long-term structural partnerships in our cities and regions without kind of creating a huge overhead that sort of doesn't deliver back value into the core academic work that the university has to do. These are all really tough, really deep, creative and sort of leadership challenges. So we're really looking forward to how we collectively can unpick some of this and look at some of the ways in which people are finding to navigate this complex territory.
Do you think this is a good time and an opportunity for the NCIA and civic work generally to kind of promote in a meaningful way, not just in a PR way, the good that universities can provide to their place?
There is a huge kind of reputational challenge for us in the sector. There absolutely is. And we shouldn't be ashamed to talk about reputation, actually, because reputation is a way of capturing the quality of trust and of affection and of understanding and of affection that people feel towards us as individuals, but also towards our institutions. It's easy to sort of dismiss it as, oh, it's all about PR, but actually it isn't. It's about relationships and it's about connection. There are perhaps three kind of really strong challenges around the civic work. One is to do with the academic practice of a university. How can you bring a civic approach into the academic practice and really capitalize on the power of what we do to create value for citizens outside the university? I think there's another really strong commitment, which is around our social responsibility and how we live and breathe our values and how we actually concretely and robustly contribute over and above the research and the teaching that we do. How do we contribute to our places and act as good neighbours and partners? And then the third area is about our reputation and our, how we are perceived and experienced. This is about our internal reputation as well as our external. I think what we've found is in universities where a civic agenda has been really gripped and embraced by the leadership, I think staff feel really supported by that. They feel proud to work for the university, and students too and partners have that sense of pride in the institution and in what it stands for. Through my career, I've always wanted to work for organisations I feel proud of, who I really believe in. And it struck me many times talking to academics, they'll often say, oh, I work at the University of X. And I said, you work at? I work for the NCCPE. I worked for the BBC. I was proud to work for them. And I think that, that sort of internal pride in our reputation is a really strong and important area for us to focus on, as well as all of the others. So it's a complex web that we need to manage. But if we bring all of those areas together with common purpose, I think they all support each other. It's a really mutually reinforcing. If the academic work is really powerful and really impactful, if we're really demonstrating our social responsibility, and if we're also working on our reputation and our internal and external communications, we're going to be better places to work and places that create more value for the world around us.
So could you tell us a bit about the NCCPE's role as part of the National Civic Impact Accelerator Programme?
There is such a strong connection between what is termed public engagement, which is what we were set up to support, and civic engagement. Both are really concerned with how to bring a really meaningful and productive relationship with people outside the university and to bring those relationships to life, whether that's through engaging people in research, connecting into the knowledge resources that we have, engaging in supporting teaching and learning, and also the sort of broader sort of public benefit that we can achieve as universities. The focus on the civic created real momentum to support the work we cared about. So it was a natural alliance, really, a natural partnership to come together. We had spent a long time focused on capacity building, really helping people understand how to do excellent public engagement. So working with people in professional roles, in engagement roles, supporting researchers who wanted to develop better engagement with their research, and doing an awful lot of work with senior managers with responsibility for engagement and for research to support them to think about, so how do we take a strategic approach to really embed this in how we work across the university? And so to be able to bring that experience and those networks into the civic space, to work with colleagues in the Civic University Network, as it was then, has been a real meeting of minds and an opportunity really to collaborate on very much the same agenda.
So to explain, there are 4 work streams to the NCIA program. Workstream 1 is evidence capture. Workstream 2 is learning and innovating. Workstream 3 is scaling up. And Workstream 4 is program management. And it's Workstream 2, isn't it? Learning and innovating, which is where you and the NCCPE comes in. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Our whole approach at the NCCPE has been to learn with the sector about how to do excellent work. So right from the beginning of the NCCPE, we worked with a number of universities. At that time, they were called beacons for public engagement, but we worked together really to go on a journey to discover how to support this work well. And so our whole approach has been about learning and trying to learn from failure as well as learn from success, but to be very open to the fact that this is not easy and this is different often. It challenges quite a few of the established norms and behaviours and practices that we are used to in universities. It forces us to think differently, to try to work in different ways. It requires different kinds of expertise. And so together we have to go on a journey of learning. And so when we were working with the team to develop the NCIA as a project, the place we felt most comfortable and that we could make the greatest contribution was into supporting that kind of a learning process. So what Workstream 2 is about inviting a number of institutions and institutional partnerships to come with us on that journey of learning. We're setting up an action learning approach. We're going to invite people to commit to an 18-month process of active, reflective learning, where they come into contact with people in other universities who are trying similar things or who are trying different things, to come into contact with people who are working in similar places, but also people who are working in very different kinds of settings, because the civic infrastructure around you as a university is so different depending on which part of the country and which particular location you're based in. And I think also we're really interested in bringing together people who are at very different stages of the journey. So we want people to come who are right at the beginning, who've got a real kind of ambition, but have barely begun to pull together the team and the approach. But we also hope that we'll have people who are part of this process who have been maybe working on this for a number of years and who've got quite established approaches that they can share, but that they can use also, I think, this opportunity to reflect on how they got to where they've got to and where they want to go next. So I think it is going to be absolutely an adventure. It's about opening yourself up really to the possibility of failure, but having at the same time a real sense of kind of ambition about what we could do if we all work together and really focus our minds and our expertise and bring our partnerships together. And a big part of this is not just working with people who work inside universities, but we're inviting every partnership who comes to join us to bring in really active involvement from their civic partners, and for that to become a really embedded part of how we're working together. So that's the plan. And alongside what we'll be doing, we're delighted that there's a work stream that's looking particularly at the evidence base for this. So Workstream 1 is very focused on what do we know about what works, what is the evidence and the data that we can draw on to inform our work. Those action learning groups are going to be lucky enough to have that kind of expertise and that support and help on tap. They'll help us learn together. And also the fact that in the third work stream, the scaling up, there's going to be a chance to make this whole process as open as possible to every university who's interested. Even if you're not part of the action learning process, there's going to be a program of events and activities, and there's going to be a sharing of resources so that the benefits of this process are open to everyone who wants to get involved. So yeah, it's a very exciting prospect to have all of that work happening together.
So how do people get involved?
We have a a call out at the moment, inviting people to express interest in joining us. It's a relatively short kind of online application that you can complete, which invites you really to explain why you want to be part of this journey, that invites you also to tell us a bit about where you're at in your particular journey of civic engagement. It invites you to talk a little bit about what resources, what team you're going to be able to bring together, and what particular challenges you would like to explore with us over the next 18 months. So there's an invitation to do that, and there's quite a lot of explanation on the website that you can access, which explains more about that. So what would you be getting yourself into if you joined? You would be joining a very significant opportunity to connect to others who are passionate about the same kind of work, but who are perhaps doing it in very different ways. We're going to bring you together as a cohort 3 times in the next 18 months. Once in July for the people who have chosen to work with us, where we will invite every participating partnership to bring their core team together. We'll meet in person and we will set the terms really of our learning journey together. And then we will start to break people into smaller action learning groups so that they can then meet sort of every couple of months for a couple of hours online to really focus and connect their learning together. We think that we'll start by bringing those groups together around particular kinds of role. We think it would be really important, say, for civic partners who are working to have a space where they can connect with other civic partners in other parts of England. We'll have a group where they're civic engagement sort of leads who are focused on kind of operationalizing the work. We might have a group with senior managers, the sort of PVC level executive leads for civic engagement in their universities. So we'll start there and we'll give people a chance to meet others doing similar roles. And then as the project evolves, we might well then set up different kinds of configurations in response to what the cohort want. We'll also be able to offer you some innovation funding. So if there are ideas that you've got for a project you'd like to develop, we're going to have 2 rounds of opportunity to bid for up to £10,000 of resource to perhaps buy out time or to bring in some particular resources that you need to deliver them. We've also got some bursaries that are available because we are aware that facilitating community involvement can be challenging without some resource. So we will be able to provide you with some financial resource. But I think the key thing is having the team that are based here at the NCCPE to support that learning process. They'll be involved in all of those meetings. But also we've got the really delightful opportunity to draw on the expertise of Workstream 1 as well, the academic and professional evidence gathering function for the NCIA. So we'll have researchers and experts on tap from that setting, including staff from the Institute for Community Studies, as well as from Sheffield Hallam University, who will be there to learn with us. And who knows where we will end up. One thing we're absolutely confident about is that we will have ups and downs, but by the end of it, we're confident that we'll have a much, much more robust collective understanding of how to do this work and the conditions that help and hinder that work, and a real respect for and understanding of the different ways in which you can be civic. We don't have a set kind of doctrine that you have to be civic this way. We're really interested in how people interpret this. We're really interested in how their context affects how they approach it, and very interested in the settings in which civic activity happens, and also in the scale of the institutions. So we're really hopeful that we'll have smaller specialist institutions as well as large research intensives working together.
And just to be absolutely clear, this expression of interest is aimed at universities, right, rather than other organisations that may have a kind of civic interest.
Yeah, it's got to be focused with university involvement. Absolutely, this is being funded by Research England, but I think it's really important to emphasise that we want those, as far as possible, to be kind of partnership bids. So particularly for those universities who've got established civic relationships, that will be relatively straightforward, I think, to be able to name and to identify the critical roles that their partners will be playing in this, because this is this is not something universities can possibly do on their own. It has to be in partnership. I think for those universities who are at the very beginning of their journey, then they perhaps won't have those established relationships yet, but we still want them to be very clear with us who they are intending to engage and to have made some efforts to talk to those partners before they put their expression of interest in. So yes, this is civic engagement in the university sector, but civic engagement has to be about partnership, and it has to involve community and civic partners in an equal and really sort of significant way.
Let's say we've got somebody listening to our podcast today who's interested in submitting an expression of interest, but maybe has some questions. I understand there's a mechanism for them to ask questions.
Yes, indeed. We've set up a Padlet board, which is just like an online whiteboard almost, where you can post a question as almost like a post-it, and within a few days we'll get an answer to that. We felt that was the most equitable and transparent way to do this, so that everyone can see, what the answers are to the questions that have come up. So we've already had questions about, for instance, is this only available to universities in England? And sadly, it is only available to universities in England. There will be ways for universities in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland to engage through, workstream 3 and also through the ongoing work of the Civic University Network. And we've had other sort of technical questions about it. So do check out the Padlet. And if you've got questions, please post them up there and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can.
When is the deadline for expressions of interest?
Yeah, the deadline is the 30th of May, Tuesday, the 30th of May.
Thank you to NCCPE Co-Director Paul Manners for sharing his thoughts as a key member of the National Civic Impact Accelerator Programme team. If you would like to get involved in Workstream 2 of the NCIA programme and find out more about the expression of interest process, you'll find further information and a link to the NCCPE website in the text accompanying this podcast. If you have any comments or questions about what you've heard in this episode, please get in touch by emailing us at civicuniversity@shu.ac.uk. And you can find out lots more about the National Civic Impact Accelerator Programme by visiting our website at www.civicuniversitynetwork.co.uk/NCIA. We'll be back with another episode of CIVICAST very soon, but until then, thank you for listening.